Very good. So what I'm going to do for the first part is to share a little PowerPoint that I put together that sort of capsulized some of our thinking, and then uh, so I think what I'll do is just throw a bunch of information at you, maybe open it up then for some questions, and then turn it over to Catherine, who's going to really share some real tachlis, practical things that are going to be happening over the next months to sort of transition us, into a new thing. So with that, I'm going to share. Whoops, ugh, I always forget. I have to prepare my screen first. Hold on a second here. Um, get it ready. Okay, now it's ready. Now I can share my screen. All right, so here we are. Uh, what is next for Jewish education at TBH? And here's the little provocative subhead I'm just going to throw out at you: is that Sunday school is canceled. We're canceling Sunday school. So there you go. That's the that's the Ikar. That's the essence. But well, what do I mean by that? I don't. Do I mean that? Yes and no, a little bit. So what are we? What's going on? What are we talking about? So let me give a little background first, because Catherine and I have kind of both been working on this from different directions. And so for me, about a couple years ago, or I guess it's now been about 2 or 3 years, definitely before the pandemic, is that I was part of a project or a fellowship. It was called the Clergy Leadership Incubator, and part of that was to develop an innovation project. That was part of our learning, and it really could have been anything. These were all we were. There were 20 congregational rabbis. It really could have been anything that we wanted to do, and I sort of landed on the idea of b'nai mitzvah. I'd been doing the primary b'nai mitzvah tutoring for a while, and I just had some thoughts about b'nai mitzvah, not just here at TBH, but in general. And so I decided to take that on, and I sort of developed a program that we're starting to implement as well here at TBH, that thinking about how can we create more personalized experiences and different paths to b'nai mitzvah, to honor that people have different experiences, different strengths, different interests, and that sort of thing. So that's slowly being developed, working with the families who are having b'nai mitzvah now, and thinking about that. So it's a very worthwhile endeavor. And that sort of leads to, I mean, while I was focused specifically on b'nai mitzvah, it sort of raised the idea, okay, well, if we're going to look at b'nai mitzvah differently, that could trickle down to Jewish education as a whole. And that wasn't my focus. I was really just thinking about b'nai mitzvah, but it's sort of subsequently begin to think about that. And then also, we've and under Catherine, as Catherine has led our Beit Sefer program, we've made changes to Beit Sefer over the years. There's been a number. It's been more gradual, but there's been a number of changes at B'nai Mitzvah, at Beit Sefer over the past couple of years. These are just some of them. Consolidation of Jewish learning on Sunday. We used to have Wednesday Hebrew, Ivrit classes that we consolidated on Sunday. We have this multi-age classes, beautifully described as a tree, Eitz Chaim, right? The Torah is a tree of life. Um, and that, our 4 levels of classes are all named after parts of a tree, which is beautiful and gorgeous. We have an opening assembly and service, so we bring people all together and do some prayer and learning together. We have joint lunch and snack to build community. We have special holidays, special days around certain holidays where we'll move out of the classroom into doing more holiday related stuff. We have social activities. Catherine has looked at the curriculum over the past couple of years. And so there's been a number of changes already in the works in Beit Sefer. And then, surprise, surprise, COVID, right? Which is one of the things that we face this year. And really everything, like every aspect of congregational life has had to shift because of COVID. And also, that also means youth education. And so Catherine has spent a lot of time this year really recreating best practices, about how to engage youth and families in this time of COVID and virtually. And that sort of prompted, it's interesting, thinking about it from in general with congregational life, how COVID has sort of forced us to make changes, and we realize that, oh, those changes are really great, and we don't want to let those go. Things like just think about services and live streaming and Zoom and accessibility and things like that. Like those are not things we want to just jettison when the pandemic is over, but we want to figure out how we can maintain that. And the same is true um, with youth education. Like, what are the things that? And so COVID is sort of, I think, across the board, COVID has, and I'm sure in other fields that you work in as well, that COVID has sort of accelerated change in ways that, changes that you might be thinking of that might take a uh, slower pace. COVID has kind of amplified, accelerated that, and we want to keep it going. So that's where we are. So what are some of the challenges to youth education? And I don't mean this just at Beit Sefer or TBH. I mean, these are things that are kind of across the board at different all across the Jewish world. And, Catherine and I have both been at lots of webinars and, and conferences that sort of address a lot of these things. And to think about too, just in general, I think about in your own life as well, that how things were 20, 30, 40 years ago don't necessarily work now. And, I think about there are aspects to Hebrew school, the Sunday school, that when I went to Hebrew school, are still there, but they don't work in the same way. And so it really provides us with an opportunity to rethink. So what are some of the challenges of Jewish youth education these days? And this is where I get my, I'm not a great PowerPoint person, but I figured out rudimentary animation. So I'm pretty proud of myself for some of these. So so bear with me. So one is like one size fits all, right? We have one program, right? It's one program, and that it's meant to serve everybody. And as we know, just from that, like from education in general, that's not always the case, right? Kids have different learning modalities, different levels of interest, different skills and experience. And so a one size fits all program might not be the best, even within Jewish education. We have an either or situation, right? So it's right now, we have lots of families, there are lots of kids in our community, some who are a part of Beit Sefer, some who are not a part of Beit Sefer. And the way it's structured with Sunday school is that we really kind of have an either or. Either you're in Beit Sefer or you're not in Beit Sefer. Either you do this program of Jewish education or we don't really have much to offer. And that's really something, we want to move past, to think about how could we sort of open up Jewish education really to everybody. And so it's not that you have to do this one thing, but there's actually more opportunities, more choices of entry, and that it's not an either or situation. Another is that it's not on Jewish time, right? I mean, that's kind of, we have Hebrew school on Sunday, but we know that Sunday is not our holy day, right? Shabbat is our holy day. And we, I'm not, I don't want to jump the gun and say, no communities, congregations have shifted their learning to Saturdays. There's definitely issues and challenges with that, and we want to honor families with that. But just that overall notion that we have our primary connection for our families happens on Sundays, which outside the scope of Jewish time, as it were. Thinking about the Jewish calendar, what are our sacred gathering days? So what that means then too, is related to this other challenge, is that it becomes then, and I recognize this too, because I'm I'm not just a rabbi, right? I'm also a parent, just still raising kids who are, of this age, although just, our younger son just had his bar mitzvah a year ago, but that this idea that it becomes the primary Jewish experience is Sunday school for families. And then related to that point before, then the primary Jewish experience is happening outside of Jewish time, as it were. So how could we sort of think that differently? And that's sort of what's meant. I mean, the idea is that this type of Jewish education has been traditionally called supplemental Jewish education. And what is meant by that, it's meant to supplement um, like Jewish practice that's already kind of existing and going on. And I know that many families are engaged in that. So then how could we sort of get those in line and sort of make this primary communal experience of Sunday school, this gathering, into onto Jewish time? So another is, focus on children and not just and not on families, and that's how the programs tend to be. Again, this is something that's kind of universal. Um, I think about our Tot Shabbat, in which the whole family's engaged at times. It's not to say that families aren't engaged through the Beit Sefer, but to think about how can we augment that and sort of increase that family experience. What is this? There's no guarantee of skill acquisition. If you think about, the major skill acquisition that we're aiming for is Hebrew learning. And, with the type of program that's sort of trying to do a lot, and going back to that one size fits all type thing, the constituent parts sometimes don't always add up, if that makes sense. That we can't, if we're not focused or conscious about each of the parts, then they might not be developed. And so we want to find a situation where we could really focus and affirm each of the constituent parts. Um, and then, it's 9 months a year. It's like a school calendar, but we know there's other opportunities to learn at various places. And then, here's where it comes out. Think about the name. It comes down to school rather than life, right? So we're trying to aim. The point of Jewish education is really to develop whole people, whole individuals, our children, into a deeply connected Jewish life that involves connection with Jewish spirituality, whole individual, working on the whole person, that sort of thing. And so it becomes more like a school focus as opposed to just life. This is what Jewish life is about. And so what's the flip side? I know I'm throwing a whole bunch of stuff at you, and I just want to so I will take a moment for questions in a moment. Um, and so where does it go? And so this is sort of the opposite, or this is where to go. Now it becomes a program that's built around choices and multiple opportunities that people can have the make choices about aspects of Jewish education so that it fits fits the life, fits the family, fits interests. That there are multiple opportunities. It's not an either or situation that you come to this or not, but that we can broaden about who's engaged in Jewish education. Focusing on Jewish time, incorporating more aspects of Jewish time into the program, integrating it with the community as a whole. That's another piece. I think sometimes here at TBH we've experienced it. We see it perhaps at other places too, that the Sunday school program is a wonderful community in and of itself, but is sometimes also siloed from other aspects of the greater TBH community. And there's some overlap, but not a lot. So how could we maybe more integrate those things? Having a full family focus, having the commitment to learn. So again, if you're committing to different constituent parts, then how could we really make that commitment? And so it's like, no, I'm not just sending my children off to school, but how could I sort of follow through with that commitment to really commit to? So we, again, going back to that skill acquisition, thinking all year. It's not saying like we're going to spend the school year all year, but just thinking about it in that totality, taking that big picture, and then thinking about it more in sense of this is life. This is living a Jewish life and not school in that way. And that some ways is semantics, other times, it's something a bit larger. So what is it? What might that look like? And this is where we've been thinking about some of these things. And I just call this 5 pathways to Jewish experience, is that to be able to break things out into their constituent parts and to offer it as a whole, where families can make choices within those and sort of do as much or as little as is desired or fitting. Obviously, I'm in favor of the maximalist approach, but it's sort of recognizing what interests are, what desires are, and whatnot. And so here we have 5 5 of the constituent parts: holidays, enrichment, Hebrew, Shabbat, excuse me, and in-home learning. So what are these? These are 5 constituent parts. So what might these look like in practice? Um, so here in more detail, here's more of my animation skills in PowerPoint. One is the holidays. Okay, so the idea would be to then think about that the congregational TBH holiday celebrations that we are already doing will be consciously a part of the education program, as opposed to being, this is what we do and then school is here. But like everything, the high holidays or Passover or a Purim celebration would be considered a part of the learning. That participating in those is part of participating in the education program, which involves to sort of thinking through. And again, overall, this, we're talking broad strokes. I'll get to a point where there are things that we want to still need to nail down. But this, this takes intention on our part in terms of thinking about the educational component of those and making sure that that's there, and it's not just the Purim party or whatever, but that we're doing it. So attending the high holidays is part of the education program. Attending Purim is part of the education program. And there are some holidays that maybe don't lend themselves to that as easily, but to consciously build in holiday prep times. Passover being primarily an at-home holiday, how could we build a prep learning day around that? So building in the holiday cycle as part of the learning program. Shabbat, we have Shabbat every week. It doesn't mean the expectation is to come every week, but that we will, as we've started to do, and this should have been on that earlier slide as well. I realize I left it off, but we've been having family Shabbat services, especially in the time where we could meet in person, sharing meals together, having Shabbat-based learning together. So to expand that out over the course of the year and to include those as part of the learning experience. So again, already here we have sort of choices. Then Hebrew will be broken out into a constituent part. With a variety of opportunities to learn Hebrew. Either there's online learning, in person, keeping smaller groups, but almost making Hebrew a bit of an independent study piece, and a separate part. So the idea, if you want to learn Hebrew, then we would commit to Hebrew. It wouldn't be part of the one overall program, but that this is a constituent part that we could focus on. And then the fourth piece would be enrichment activities, thinking about Jewish education as enrichment, that we would, a lot of these details have yet to be worked out, but we're talking sort of broad strokes, is that we would have almost like elective classes built around a variety of themes. It could be nature, it could be cooking, holidays or whatnot, that would meet for shorter periods of time throughout the year that people could sign up for and register. And in this too, we could think about broadening. I mean, we know we have a lot of people in our community who have various expertise and skill sets. Maybe they have skills in one area but need help with the Jewish knowledge, but we can bring that together and to really bring people from across the community to do teaching and enrichment. So someone might not want to be a Hebrew school teacher for a full year, but it can come in and teach 6 weeks in art, in the holidays or type of thing. So we would build in this. And keep up with at in-home learning, which is another piece of COVID time that would stick around, that things could go home. We could push things out to families around holidays, around Shabbat, about various ways to think and activities to do, and then building in sort of reporting back times. So these would be the 5 pathways. And what I meant by choice is that these would be kind of separate in a way, but part of a whole. That people can make choices. That if you wanted to attend the Shabbat celebrations throughout the year, that's great. If you weren't necessarily interested in Hebrew, you wouldn't have to sign up for Hebrew classes. If you really wanted to learn Hebrew, you could sign up for Hebrew classes. You could have your choice of electives and study over the course of the year, attending the level of holidays you wanted to do. So this would be sort of breaking it out, really integrating Jewish education into the whole picture, and that we would find make your own choices, and that would be considered your Jewish education. So a couple details that we're, that are still obviously, I mean, there's a lot of details to work out, but sort of thinking it to the next step is that looking at these 5 different pieces that, curriculum, think about curriculum, would be woven throughout all of these opportunities. Hebrew, and we've already sort of have, well, when people are learning Hebrew, they're also learning prayer. When people are learning about holidays, they can also be learning about food ways and things like that. And so we would look at the overall scope about curriculum. Everything would be considered optional, that you would build your own program based on your own interests and your own attendance. You could identify your own learning goals. Like, what do you envision for B'nai Mitzvah? And make choices to me. If you're committed to reading Torah in Hebrew for your B'nai Mitzvah, then you would commit to learning Hebrew. And that's how you'd be sure to learn Hebrew and commit to that class. If that's less important to you and you don't feel that Hebrew learning is a path that you want to take, then you wouldn't have to sign up for Hebrew classes, that type of thing. We would sort of move to get other details, that we would move from tuition to fees. It's not an either or program that you pay one tuition and then it's a part of a program. But some of these would be open to all, like Shabbat or holidays are going to be open to all, regardless. There would be fees involved, say, for Hebrew classes or these enrichment classes, because there's materials and teachers and whatnot. So some of it would be open to all, some of it would carry fees, but it wouldn't be an overall tuition, again, either or situation. And we have this idea of maybe, having a kind of like a punch card where uh, any youth in our community can get one of these, and it sort of lists all of these opportunities over the course of a year. And every time you show up for one, you could present your card and have a stamp or a sticker or something like that, and then you would sort of build out your program, and you could record your Hebrew learning plan, the enrichment classes you take, and we would track that. We would sort of keep it in a place at the temple that you could come and get it each time and present it and for your stamp and whatnot. And then part of that is thinking, okay, this is a larger, like what maybe incentives we could build in as well. And that's sort of thinking to things like camp and summer type programs that maybe we could help support as well. And then just so overall, this is something that expands Jewish education. I think about, we're starting with Tat Shabbat, we're going through the teen years, that it's all part of this larger whole. Some of those need to be built out, but it's taking this overall picture. So I'm just gonna briefly. So the other, I know I've been talking. I think I've been talking longer than I thought I was going to talk. So and I know I've just been talking really fast. These are just 2 quick slides. I can push these out to you as well. When I was working on the B'nai Mitzvah project, I did a values clarification exercise with, maybe some of you remember filling out forms for me, with the families, with the ritual committee, with the board, with the lots of constituent groups in the temple. And these are kind of the 13 values around B'nai Mitzvah that rose to the top. You can just skim those in 3, 2, 1, boom, okay. And then this is another, framework I put together for the B'nai Mitzvah that I think applies all. It's we have so many, I put something together, and then all of our wonderful state workers and someone said, oh, that looks like a social ecological model, which I didn't know what that was, but I looked it up. But this idea, these are the levels of kind of our identities that we want to encourage within our kids: the self, the family, TBH, the Jewish people as a whole, TBH meaning our local Jewish community, humanity, everybody, the world, environment, and then God, spirituality. These are things. So, and then one other piece, and maybe this is the most controversial, but as we'll get to, we call our program now Beit Sefer, which is Hebrew for school. And we really, this was something I had to do for this program I did, where our lead teacher was like, you have to come up with a name. And I sort of pushed back on that for a while, but ultimately a name. And we thought about this, that what is the name that really reflects what we're doing? And one of the phrases, the verses that comes to mind is, this is from the Torah service, when we put the Torah back into the ark and we sing, Eitz Chahayim Hi Lama Chazikim Ba. And it goes on, it's a tree of life for those who take hold of it. Whoever holds it is happy. The it, in this case, is Torah. This is from Psalms. It's Psalms or Proverbs, I think. Proverbs. It is Torah. And then its paths are paths of pleasantness, and all its paths are peaceful. It's just a beautiful image of Torah, again, relating to that tree of life that we already have built in with our multiple age classes and whatnot. And so, in playing around with this, I'm thinking, if we're moving away from school per se, that this is not a school program, but it's a Jewish life program, then maybe we need to rethink how we call it. And so, if we move to this idea, highlighting this phrase of Darchei Noam, paths of pleasantness, again, relating to Torah, paths of Jewish learning, that what we want to encourage is families and kids to create their own paths and opportunities to meet their own learning goals. And since this is about life and wholeness, then maybe we need to move away from Beit Sefer as a moniker and move to something that is kind of more holistic. So this is what we're playing around with right now, Darchei Noam. So with that, I think we'll pause for questions, and then Catherine will share what she's been cooking up for sort of real practical sense for the next couple of months. But this is sort of that overarching bit that we've been thinking. I know I sort of threw a lot out there to you, but we're both very excited about this. We're both thinking this could be really, sort of meeting families' needs, where Jewish education has come to, and to really add a sense of interest and excitement, and really expand and sort of open up, almost democratize Jewish education to really anybody who wants to participate. So, any question? Oh, I did talk a lot longer than I thought. Geez. Oh, maybe I didn't look. On a share screen, I couldn't see my clock. So, any questions? I'm going to pause the recording because I don't think we need to spotlight you, Catherine.
Alrighty.
There you go.
Oh, I liked it better when both of our pictures were on there because mine was smaller. But so I also created a PowerPoint. I made it really, really short. And
do I need to give you share screen? Okay. There, you should be able to share screen now.
All right, thank you. So, the first thing I want to say is I want to thank each and every one of you for being here and for listening to what it is that we have to share. Rabbi and I have both worked really, really hard on what this is supposed to look like, and we don't have all the answers yet, but it is something that we really feel like is an important thing, important thing moving forward, because it's really, really important for us to be able to maintain this Jewish community, but at the same time, we want to be able to honor every family's differences. We want to be able to inspire and also to support the development of family life within our Jewish community. So let me see about this. Screen share here, and I can tell you a little bit about this program that we're looking at. It is a short-term program, and it is intended. Let's see if I can start that. Alrighty. Can everybody see my PowerPoint now? Yes, excellent. Okay. So basically what this is a short-term program, and it is intended to connect not only the ideas and the things that we celebrate between Passover and Shavuot, but also the idea that we've been in quarantine and now we're moving into this new freedom, which gives us the opportunity to do brand new things. So it's a sneak peek at the new program that we're looking at, and it's an opportunity for families to kind of ease in, to give it a try, to see what works and what doesn't work, and then we can tweak and continue from there. And I included a whole thing about why it is that we count the Omer, and how that connects with what it is that we're doing. I want to be cognizant of everybody's time, so I'm just going to really, really quickly run through these bullet points without giving you all of the fluffy stuff in between. We count the Omer because Torah requires it. That's what we're told to do. We count the Omer because it connects the freedom that we celebrate from Passover to the responsibilities that are given to us with the Torah at Shavuot. And freedom and responsibility are both very, very, very important. And it's a very important piece of what it is that we're doing here, is we're creating freedom, but we're also, by creating that freedom, giving the responsibility of what happens next to families. It creates an opportunity for self-improvement, because that's kind of what we do when we count the Omer, is we look at specific values and how we can make those values work better in our lives. And so that's what we're going to be doing with this program. It builds anticipation. And so we want to build anticipation for the new stuff that's coming up. So that is also why counting the Omer is important. And of course, it draws attention to Jewish time, which is a really, really big piece of what it is we're trying to do. So moving forward from there, some of the things that are going to be happening with this Making the Omer Count is there will be a Passover take-home activity that families will be doing. You will be given everything that you need in order to do this project. You will complete this project as a family, and at a later meeting, you'll get together and you'll talk about how this project worked for you and what it is you decided to do. There will be all kinds of options, very wide parameters. We will continue to do Family Shabbat. Family Shabbat is very important, so we're going to continue to do that, and we will continue to do it in much the same way that we've done it up to this point. Havdalah in the park. By the time it gets to where it's warm enough and comfortable for everybody to be outside, we will still be working on this program. So we will definitely be doing a Havdalah in the park at some point within the structure of this program. I'm also working on a program with PJ Library where we will celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut. We will be celebrating Lag BaOmer, because of course we're counting the Omer. So that's a celebration that we will participate in. We will have the opportunity to do a Camp Style Havdalah, that one's virtual, with Camp Solomon Schechter. This is something that we've been coordinating with Camp Solomon Schechter all of this time. So some of you may have participated in some of those, and if you haven't, you'll have an opportunity to do it again. And then also, obviously, we'll be doing a family Shavuot celebration, which will be similar to the kinds of things that we have done in the past with families, except of course, we will have remote options for people. That it won't be something that'll be happening completely in person. Now, when I was saying that we were going to be talking about the Omer and doing these group meetings, within the course of the time that we're doing the Making the Omer Count program, we're going to have 4 different group meetings. And the reason why I'm calling them group meetings and not classes is because they are focused around the idea of families doing education together. We will try to group families in such a way that the kids can connect with the kids that are roughly their same age. But the groups will have kids of a variety of ages within them. And so these are the different things that we're going to be talking about in each group or in each meeting. What is the Omer and why do we count it? And the basic idea behind this one is go to a place outdoors where you feel the presence of our Creator, and how can you show kindness to the earth at this time? And the reason why I wanted to give people an overarching view of what it is we're doing is I want you to take the opportunity, while I'm talking, because I'm not going to read the whole screen, take the opportunity to look at them and think about the idea that we are both honoring our Jewish values while we're talking about these things, but we're giving everybody the space to do that in a way that honors their families and what's important within their family. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to look at some of those different, the different values that we'll be talking about and how it is that those are aligned in the program. And then I'm going to move on. Whoops, wrong one. Going to move on to the nitty gritty. Making the Omer Count is a program that's going to be open to all school-age kids up to the B'nai Mitzvah age. So I'm thinking that this is something that's going to fit with families that have students or kids that are in K through 6th grade. If you have children that are younger than kindergarten, if you have children that are older than 6th grade, and they want to participate or you want them to participate, let me know. I don't see that as being a problem. When we're going to start March 21st, which is just a week away, but we're going to start with that take-home family activity. So it's a date, but it's not a date that is hard to approach. And we're going to run basically through May 21st, which, if I remember correctly, is the last family Shabbat that we will have, or is the family Shabbat that we will have in May. Within that date, all of those other activities are going to be offered. The group meetings, the Shabbat, the Havdalah, the Lag Bomer, Shavuot, all of that stuff is going to happen there. And what's going to happen is that if your family decides to participate in this, then you will have all of these opportunities in ways to connect. And you don't necessarily have to jump into everything, but we feel like it will be a stronger and a more meaningful experience if you make every effort to jump into as many as you can. Some of these meetings will be virtual. Other meetings will be at parks and safer spaces. Where exactly we meet and how exactly we meet will depend on each group, the size of the group, and the comfort level of each group. So we may at some point have a family or a group with a couple of families that decide they want to have Shabbat in the park or in somebody's backyard, and that's fine. We may have groups that decide, because they have certain health issues or whatever, that they want to be completely virtual the whole time, and that is okay too. That will be decided by the groups themselves, and we will keep in touch with everybody and make sure that we make that happen as comfortably as possible for everybody. Registration is required for full participation. That doesn't mean that none of the events will be available to people who are not registered. Some of them will be. But in order to participate in everything, you will want to register. The cost is $36 per child. That is paid to Kayla in the TBH office. And then the registration link will be sent out in the next Family Life and Learning email, which comes out on Tuesday. So basically what that means is that you will fill out a registration form. That registration form is forwarded to Kayla. Kayla will then connect that with the money that you've paid, and we get started. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure everybody knew is that the activities that we're talking about do not conflict and will not be conflicting with currently scheduled Hebrew or Shalom Havarim meetings. Because I know that there are enough families participating in those that I wouldn't want them to feel like they couldn't participate in anything else because they had already committed to this. So those times will stay the same. So, questions. I ran through all of that really, really quickly, and so I just want to make sure that everybody has all the answers that they need, and that if anybody else has any questions, that they have an opportunity to do that. So, Rabbi, did you want to stop the recording so people can ask questions, or?